Hey, Margaret.
Yeah, Anton?
You know what people don't talk about enough?
What?
The first time Simon calls Wilhelm the prince. Welcome to People Don't Talk About Young Royals. I'm Anton, my pronouns are he, they.
And I'm Margaret, my pronouns are they, them.
And we're people here to discuss the show our friends are sick of hearing us talk about.
If that sounds like you, stick around. If your friend sent you this podcast out of a desperate attempt to get you to watch Young Royals, take this as a sign.
Go watch Young Royals, then come back to this podcast.
Anton, what are we talking about today?
Today we'll be having a plot discussion of Season 1, Episode 5, focusing on the relationship between Wilhelm and Simon.
Woohoo!
Before the disclaimer, Editing Anton has a cheeky little update for our listeners. The amount of released podcast material, as of publishing the previous episode, This Week at Hilarska, It's So Stressful, has now surpassed the runtime of the entire show 4 times over.
In this discussion, we won't be summarizing the plot of the episode because we already did that. If you need or want a refresher, head back one episode in our feed to our most recent This Week at Hilarska for a full breakdown. This episode discussion will likely be all over the place, so strap in. You have been warned.
So, dang. Okay, I don't think I want to start with my cold open because that feels like a rude place to start.
Maybe.
Yeah. I don't know. My notes, at least, are in chronological order. So I think because this, I mean, I feel like a lot of Young Royals episodes are like this, but this one especially does feel like it really does make the most sense, like unfolding in linear time.
Yeah.
Because it is very much like an escalation episode.
Very much so.
So we have opening scene cuteness. What are your feelings on the morning breath of it all?
It's kind of gross, but
yeah.
If somebody did that to me, I'm getting out of bed and walking away.
Yeah.
However, I've never been infatuated with somebody like that, so maybe it would be different.
Right. Yeah, right up. I don't know. I was like, it's like there's this intimacy, and there's like this like visceralness to like these like first romantic feelings. Like it's a cute.
It is cute. It is cute.
And it's like, that's really just the word I kept coming back to in this scene. Is like, beyond like being articulate for anything, much of anything in the first bit, you're just like, this is cute. Few details, though, that I picked out were Wilhelm saying, "Thank you for rescuing me."
Yeah.
Which I feel like I don't always catch, but it was a bit brutal this time. I was like, oh, well, fair enough. Like,
Yeah, I mean, like, how close was he to an overdose? You know what I mean? Like...
Yeah. Like, I don't know. We never get an answer as to whether or not he threw up any of those drugs. So, like, I don't know. I think it's more of, like, it was snowing. So, like, and it's Sweden. So it's, like...
I mean, yeah, it's also, like...
cold.
How eager are you to be out at night alone, not dressed for the weather, and very not in your right state of mind? Like, that's just not great combination.
And being a recognizable public figure on top of all of that.
Yeah.
It always catches me off guard, Simon suggesting cutting class.
Yeah.
And then there's a little line that gave me context for it. Because I was like, what is that? Why is this, like, overachiever? Or, like, this, like, very, like, ambitious kid, like, not... Like what? Like this? It is felt out of character, and then he's like, "At my place, there's no need to hide."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Ugh."
Mm-hmm.
It was like, as much as like Hilarska has been the place where like he sees his way to advance himself, he also now like recognizes it as a place that restricts what he and his new significant other like are not as would be far freer.
Yeah.
There. Which sets up a thing from the very beginning, from this very first scene of that does get like paid off later, of like the plan to have Wilhelm actually go to Björkstad like they planned at the end of episode 3.
Yeah, I think what shocks me more, before hearing the, like, at my house we don't have to hide, what shocks me more than Simon suggesting they cut class is Wilhelm saying no. Because I think Wilhelm would be down to cut class.
He would be down, but also, I don't know how much this precedent has been established within the show as we have covered it so far. But let's think for a second. They're definitely reporting to the royal family if the prince doesn't show up to class.
Well, sure, but I don't know. I feel like, you know,
You're not.
it's just
I
sort
think
of...
I know. It's whether or not he wants to, whether or not he would. I think are two violently different things.
Yeah,
I don't
that's true.
see either of them as actually a person who would eagerly cut class, if only for the consequences of it, despite wanting to.
That's fair. I just feel like of the two of them, it's always like the fact that Wilhelm wouldn't cut class is more shocking to me than Simon suggesting they cut class. And that's just the vibe I get from them.
And then, like a couple more details, Wilhelm being anxious about Simon being heard out in the hallway.
Mm-hmm.
Like he shushes him like multiple times throughout this scene, and it's like a detail that like I never paid too much attention to, and I was like, oof. Like it
yeah, because he's got security standing right at his fucking door.
Yeah, and like they were just interrupted, and it like I just realized it's a callback to the end of the first episode. I'm silly. Of Simon constantly wanting to like raise his voice for comedic effect, and Wilhelm being like, no, like we can't be spotted or like found out.
Mm-hmm.
And that playful interaction always just gets me. Like that being a playful interaction always just gets me every time.
Yeah.
For reasons I think that are self-explanatory. And then we, like I said, we set up the offer to come to Bar Shed sometime. That's that.
Mm-hmm.
We have the little, like, making a sandwich and failing to connect sequence.
Mm-hmm.
It's an iconic piece of Young Royals lore.
It is.
It's the sandwich, like, which I didn't mention. It was set up. It is set up in the opening scene. He's like, I'm hungry. Could you get me, like, a sandwich or something? He's like, oh, you should have brought it yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, we talked about this week, but.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
it is there are several things that the fandom, myself included, have really latched on strong to, and this sandwich is one of them.
Yes, it is. But, I mean, true to form, this is a continuation of the norm, where anything else is August gets in the way of...
Is it just butter that he's putting on it?
That's as far as we see.
Okay.
And I think, I want to say, we didn't mention this in our A Part of You reaction. I'm fairly certain Agnes
there was another
makes
butter sandwich situation.
Another butter sandwich. So it has to be a Swedish thing.
Yeah, Swedish listeners, get at us. Are y'all eating butter sandwiches?
Because that is, at least in our patch of America, highly unusual.
Yeah, I mean buttered toast, but the butter melts because it's warm.
Right, but this time around, like we can't get into it too much without going off the rails of the focus of the discussion. But like August getting in the way does feel different this time, because he knows now. Yeah, and like that is the vibe throughout the episode.
Yeah, man, I can't wait for our August episode. But yeah, no, I agree. It does feel different. It feels different throughout this whole episode, but this is the first time we see him post knowing he took the video.
Yeah. I mean, like, we cut immediately from Wilhelm leaving his room to August watching the video in the lounge.
Okay, I mean, like...
But it's like, but it's like, yeah, you're right.
Seeing him interact with Wilhelm post knowing he took the video.
Correct, yes. But I mean, yeah, these are all pretty close together. I do briefly, because it like involves the interaction. Like, I'd never fully unpacked like Simon's disappointment, like whatever look. I think in this week I think I referred to it as like a look of irritation on his face when he like recognizes that August has like intercepted Villa. And I guess the more I puzzle it out in my head, I think it potentially strikes me as a sort of like learned helplessness situation where it's like, in what situation has August intercepted between Wilhelm and Simon, and they've actually been able to come back together within that same scene?
None.
Yeah, like we have the lunch scene when they first talk to each other, the rowing scene in episode 2 at sunset. August like leads Wilhelm away. I mean, Wilhelm chooses Simon in episode 3, but like in situations where August is clearly like the initiator of the conversation, like it's like, well, I'm not about to wait around because I need to get to class, and that's that. This is clearly just not happening anymore.
Yeah,
it is definitely like sad, and like how much immediately after like this very like happy scene, the next time we see them together, it's like this little like like.
Yeah, I do want to say though that I think this episode might have them happy the longest before shit completely hits the fan. So far,
it does. Like, yeah, like this is like a slight dent, and it never really fully gets like covered.
Yeah, it's sort of just like a facial expression, and then it's gone. And then
it's then we just kind of let it go, and because it's immediately like. If there was anything, if there even was anything to repair, it's immediately covered up by the casual just like drop the sandwich down and then scurry your desk, which is to date one of the cutest things Villa ever does.
Pretty cute.
And then it's like clearly hasn't affected. I mean, and then that is clearly then like fixed things enough that like Simon is coy with Sarah about where he was last night,
right?
And is like being like still very obviously just like still totally. Like still not no less in it, right. Like so it didn't affect much. I feel like Simon saying it's like no, I didn't come home, no, I didn't sleep at home. Like I love this moment, and this won't be the last time I bring it up. Like I love it so much.
It's good.
And I didn't catch until this week of Lershka that he like gestures with his eyes to Wilhelm, like offering Sarah the answer without saying anything, which I think is very, very cool. And then there's a bunch of bullshit, and then we get to the lake scene. Like I mean, that's how Revolution goes, is we just skip over anything that does not involve them.
Then there's a bunch of bullshit. I like that. Okay, yeah, lake scene.
Yeah, well, because that is kind of just what happens with the way we order this, is that there's some things I don't remember happened until Love Memorials, when I rewatch the episode, and I'm like, oh yeah, I deliberately like skip over anything that doesn't involve women. Yeah. Well, and like the art of those also help with that too. But the lake scene is iconic. I just want to start off by saying that.
Yeah. Faux show.
Making plans for the weekend, kissing behind the security service's back, pretending to be talking about how the water is cold, like so many little moments.
Yeah. I feel like we need to talk about for a second how they've had 6 scenes together up until this point, and they already have this like, I mean, 6 is an exaggeration, obviously, but they already have this like really comfortable joking banter.
Yeah.
Of like, the water's cold today. If they weren't here, would you throw yourself at me?
Yeah.
Like, just is cute. Is comfortable banter.
Yeah. I still don't get, shall I tell you what, or shall I tell you how? I found different translations. Like this. Like,
I don't get it.
I don't. Yeah. I think I have to come down to, it seems like an answer without a question that we're getting like in like the montage of this conversation. I couldn't tell you what the context for this.
No, I don't know the context. Or maybe it's like a reference to something that's like we just don't have the context for. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. But No, you were very much right about their banter. Like, I mean, a certain amount is implied between scenes of like them hanging out and everything, but in terms of like how much the audience has actually seen them interact, like it is a testament to the acting, and the writing. And then, as mentioned in the floats that came out a while ago, and actually now, I recently did a full reaction with a reactor's like exclusive Patreon reactions. So I technically did like rewatch the entire show in 2 days, although it was like smaller and with people watching it. But in that context of that, I had a new thought, which is just quite seriously how obvious they're being to the bodyguards.
Yeah.
Which
I feel like we talked
earlier,
about that a bit.
I think we did, yeah.
Well,
I mean, we haven't talked. I don't know how much we've talked about it because
I think we talked about it in This Week of Hilarska.
Okay, yeah. I never know if we ever actually accomplished any discussion in This Week of Hilarska because it's like, but yeah.
I think we did because I remember being like, they've got the biggest hard eyes that have ever hard eyed, and
yeah.
Simon is like grabbing. I can't remember if it's like the scarf that Wilhelm is wearing or if it's like his jacket, but like bros don't do that.
Yeah.
At least most bros don't do that.
I mean, they're very, like, even beyond that, like, rewatching this scene this morning, I was like, they're so touchy-feely.
Yeah.
But that does bring up a point we didn't talk about this because it was more deep discussion. The ethics of the bodyguards and what they report to the court.
Yeah. I'd like to hear your thoughts, because I have thoughts after I saw this point on your notes that I wrote down.
I'm of two minds.
Okay.
Because, like, on the one hand, like, I think I want to believe in confidentiality.
Mm-hmm.
But even with what we've seen thus far, I feel like it's reasonable to have built up enough distrust that I'm like, are you subtly mentioning something, or do they at least know who you're hanging out with, even if they aren't going to confirm in what capacity? Like, does someone in the royal family, or at least the royal court, know that Wilhelm has befriended a commuter student?
Possibly. My take on it is I don't feel like they would go running back to the royal court, not out of a confidentiality and not even as a loyalty to Wilhelm, but I think it's more like that's not my job description.
That's fair.
I feel like it's like he's not a safety risk. That's really all I'm looking out for here. That's not my job.
Yeah.
But I think if the royal court was like, hey, we're concerned that he's befriending this student in this capacity, then I think she'd be like, yeah, okay, this is exactly what's going on. Because it's just like a job duties thing, not like a...
No, fair enough.
But like without being expressively told, like, hey, what's going on with this? I don't think she'd be like, hey guys, just so you know.
Yeah, because I think it's like, I get teachers like probably reporting to the royal family,
but I mean that's like not their job either.
It's not their job. I mean, I keep saying probably out of some sort of plausible deniability, we do at least find out that this is a thing later in the series. So spoiler. So it's like we do. I think I'm unavoidably bringing in my knowledge of that is happening. But like I think that feels different because like the bodyguards are like fully like under the employ of the royal family, but like that feels super not their job description because like teachers at least still deal with like parents, but like bodyguards like they do have like one job and it's like they obviously do not deem Simon any sort of security risk, so it's fine.
Yeah. And
then again, more bullshit. We skip ahead to Simon's bedroom / the fish scene as I think of it. And then I was like, just like, don't touch me. This is quite possibly like unambiguously my favorite scene in all of season 1.
Yeah. I think I have to agree.
And like knowing how much of it was improvised on the day.
Yeah, that's always been insane to me. We can talk about that more in Art of the Choice.
Yeah. But like a lot of what was improvised was the dialogue, but like the dialogue isn't really what makes it really. Like it is also like the acting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from the very start of Wilhelm entering and saying like, "I like it," like it's cozy, and like there's privilege punishment implications to that that we should table, so I don't get ahead of myself.
Yes. Because we're actually going to save privilege punishment for privilege punishment
this time. Yeah. And then I guess, yeah, we probably should save the fish Easter egg for Art of the Choice, shouldn't we?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Turning on the video game will never not be fun. Will never not be funny to me.
It's hilarious.
Like, I don't know. It's just this vibe of they're hiding, but they're together. Without either of them, especially Wilhelm, having any qualms or like hang-ups about whether or not this feels right.
Mm-hmm.
Like that has stopped being the issue.
Right.
Like they're both on the same page for like essentially the first time.
Yeah.
Like there have been earlier intimacy scenes, but in terms of like both walking into the situation, knowing what is going down, and like understanding like this is what is, having expectations and like just like committing to those expectations, like it's their first like real like plans that actually follow through.
Yeah, that actually like, work and nobody's brother dies.
Yeah, it's not Wilhelm texting him, "Why aren't you going to be at rowing practice?" and then he tags along.
Yeah.
To soccer, like, and then it's not Simon being invited to horror movie night, and then that being a thing, and it's not just Wilhelm like choosing to sit, like it's like it's a coordinated effort.
Yeah,
the first time that's happened.
I mean, they did have a coordinated effort one time prior to this, and then August got in the way, and then Eric died. So this is the first time it's worked for them.
Exactly. That's why I'm like, this is the first one with follow through.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, as simple as that makes it sound, I think its specialness is in that simplicity.
Yeah. Is
that they've already like gone through enough bullshit that this just feels so fundamentally earned.
Right.
Even after only like 4.5 episodes.
I agree.
But then we get what I refer to as the full-on collision of two storylines that have been running in parallel, which is August revealing Simon's involvement in the drugs to Villa, which was your cold open for this week, Hilershka.
Sure was.
And it's like, we can't get too much into it. I don't have any notes on it without just derailing this into an August character assassination. But
which we'll get there.
We'll get there. Spoilers, but that should have been very obvious.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, we're 4 for 4, gonna be 5 for 5 on August character assassinations.
Exactly,
show. Yeah. It should be a shocker to absolutely no one at this point.
Right. But from a writing standpoint, I think, like, with this being like a plot discussion, like, that is the thing about season 1, that as much as, like, for a lot of people, season 1 is their favorite season. And honestly, the thing that, weirdly enough for me, I come back to with season 1, that, like, I don't know what season is my favorite, honestly. Like, it's hard for me. And it comes down to the fact that, like, as much as I appreciate and understand the storyline of Simon and the drugs, and it does a lot for the story, the way that it is like a siloed off storyline that is happening between like two characters for 4 straight episodes, it feels, which is like, there are other things that happen like with that later in the show, but like it, with having it involve like one of our like main two, it like feels weird, and there's a certain amount of, as horrible as it is, I always receive a little bit of, it's gonna sound crazy, like cathartic relief when Villa finally knows, because it is this like separation that we've talked about before, like in like kind of like the two versions of Simon that we get thus far, because he's very good. We've talked about Simon like compartmentalizing of, this is who I am when I am selling drugs and alcohol, and this is, and dealing with August, and this is who I am around Villa.
Right.
Which, and neither of those is no less like of a true thing, but having those two versions of him finally come together, and we finally like get this like wholeness, like Villa finally gets this like wholeness of him, and like there's finally no secrets, is helpful in as much it like narratively, in the way that it is absolutely devastating and horrible emotionally and like for the relationship.
Yeah, I agree.
You get what I mean?
I think there's a I don't even know what I want to say here. I do see what you mean by like this weird relief once it's like out in the open, because it kind of feels a bit like a time bomb that might go off at any moment. And it does go off, and it goes off in a big way, but it is sort of like a, okay, now that's out there, everybody knows about it, or at least all like our main characters know about it.
Minus Felice and Sarah, we consider them core 5, okay, but fair enough. Your point granted. And I don't know if this is just like the wicked satisfaction I get potentially as a writer, or I was like, oh, it's a good way of, it's just a really clever way of bringing those storylines together. Like it needed to get resolved in some way. Like things needed to finally come back eventually, and finding that way in, like, it is some of the most clever writing in the entire show.
It's really good.
How you take something that has quite literally just been like random scenes peppered throughout the past 4 episodes, and you just fully pay it off in, I can't think of a better way. Like,
yeah, it's a very good testament to the way that Lisa wrote, in a way that is thinking about not even just this episode, but the entire season/series when she's writing.
Yeah.
That we can, again, get into in a later episode.
Right. Which is why we will get cycles about a full season, because as much as we appreciate the very nitty-gritty of going episode by episode, there's also a lot of benefits in Young Royals about looking at big picture stuff too. Because it does both, which is very few stories do that, but all the good ones do.
I agree.
Then leads us to the music room fight.
Or we could not. We could skip it.
We could.
It'd be easy.
Not going to, though.
But we could.
Imagine doing Revolution without talking about this scene.
I am, and it's very pleasant.
The sweet little, like, that from Simon when
yeah, he has no idea what's about to happen.
Well, like, Villa asks if they can talk, and like there's enough of an expression on Simon's face that he clearly is like recognizing pretty quickly that this isn't that, but like, I don't know, this is pretty quintessential Young Royals plotting of the narrative, which is like going from this highest high to lowest low. Like,
yeah. You know that, like, pictures taken 10 seconds before disaster?
Yeah.
That's Simon's face when Wilhelm asks him to talk in the hallway.
Yeah. So fucking much is said in this scene.
Yeah.
Doing it this week to Lershkana was difficult. But despite the few times I've actually sat down to watch Young Royals without like the context of it being in reaction video, I've heard this argument so many times through reaction videos, like because a lot of videos include like most of it, because it's crucial enough that you can get away with it, and there's a lot, and it's like usually you include the stuff that you're reacting a lot to, and obviously people are reacting a lot to this argument, so you get a lot of clips of it.
He dropped some bombshells here, so
both of them do.
Yeah.
So like I've heard this argument enough times to actually get what you meant, Margaret, by see the part of your reaction for when Margaret said this, the bonus episode from last week. But when you mentioned, I think I have the dialogue memorized, I don't think I'm learning Swedish.
Oh yeah.
Where it was like there's something about the flow of the back and forth of the scene that I was actually doing that. I was realizing I was looking down to do notes, and I realized was one of the moments where I was kind of just kept it playing. In the back of my head, I was like, it's this point, and then this point, and then this point, and then this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because it's like there's something about the back and forth that like it's fundamental to the show.
Mm-hmm.
The things that get brought up here, like it is cutting to the core, like to the heart of it.
Yeah, I mean it perfectly illustrates and like points out the disconnect in situations, if you want to call it that they have, because Simon's is like, I don't remember how he leads up to it, but something because the prince fucked up, and then Wilhelm's is selling drugs that's so fucking low.
Yeah.
What about my family, like our reputation?
And then there's just the fucking mess in between those two things of just the rampant miscommunication. Like something that in that the reactions that I watched this past week, like they commented the show on that hadn't fully thought about before, is it's one of the few shows where characters do listen to each other as they're talking.
Mm-hmm.
Which is still the case in this scene, which is why I think it's still so fucking impressive how much miscommunication there is in this short exchange.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of it is interpreting so much into silence and being unable to form your words fast enough.
Right.
Like both of them are projecting so much. And it's like we've had conflict in the show before.
Oh yeah.
Between these two. But like this is the first time there's been like real fire behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And like I think it's because they both have a lot to lose in this situation, including each other.
Yeah.
Because they've gotten truly invested in each other.
Yeah.
Like every previous time, which most of the times have been Wilhelm being like, oh no, I can't do this. Simon has been mopey about it and like hasn't taken it well necessarily, but like has just been like, I gotta go. Okay, fine. That was the last time that happened.
Yeah.
But this time we gotta, depending on how it ends up getting, Swedish listeners end up telling me it's translated, we gotta fuck you.
That is true. We do get that. At least that's what Netflix gives us.
Yeah.
In closed captions and subtitles or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, the internet says it's possibly like screw it or damn it or whatever. But anyways, this gets to my cold open where like the royal family has pulled Villa away, but this is the first time it's really repelled Simon from this relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
Like the royal family has been like, Wilhelm's number one reason to like have all his hangups about this dynamic, and it's like correct me if I'm wrong, you've rewatched more than I have, but this is definitely the first time Simon calls Villa the prince, right? The only thing I can think of is like they referred to him as the prince in like the bus scene in the pilot, with like Ayub and Raj, but like,
well, and I guess certainly post meeting Wilhelm, it's the first time he says it in place of Wilhelm's name, and really kind of acknowledges the fact that he's a prince outside of we know who gets the most
like welfare, like who the biggest
welfare
welfare
country.
Yeah. And so I think it's because, and I think very simply, like, it's because, like, the implications of Villa's, like, privilege, like, his like, princedom, like, his, like, him being a prince becomes unavoidable. Like, you can't, we've mentioned various times, like, this, our feeling that, like, Simon is actively ignoring that Villa is a prince, somewhere on the spectrum of not seeming to care, or just, like, more likely actively choosing to disregard it. And it's like, this, he can't do that.
Right.
Like, he's had little acknowledgments here and there of, like, he needs to hide it to Sarah, like he does it to Sarah, and then there's a little bit of, like, unspoken frustration when in the, like, before that, in, like, the forget about it, let's forget about that in episode 2, episode 3, but it's like, for the first time, it's like, the reason, like, Simon is angry, and he is angry because Wilhelm is the prince and he's acting like the prince.
Yeah, I concur.
Yeah. And it's just like, he's angry because he allowed himself to hope. Like I said, he got invested this time.
Yeah.
And so it hurts more. Moving on. Quick shout out to Wilhelm's W against August.
Big time.
It's, even if it is partly his own undoing.
Yeah, but it's kind of victim blaming if we call it that, isn't it?
No, fair enough. We'll get to it in Love Among Royals, but this is, like, that is love and loyalty as far as, like, Wilmon, the relationship is concerned. Like, even if we can and we will talk about the admitted, like, grayness of throwing Alexander under the bus, morally, but
I mean, okay, but for a half a second, can we think about how it would make absolutely no goddamn sense for them to be like, it was all Simon, because Simon wasn't caught with drugs.
Yeah, it would. Yeah. We'll talk about this more later, but, like, Wilhelm calls it, like, the simpler play, and he's correct.
Yeah, it would make no fucking sense to be like, don't get Alexander in trouble because it was Simon. And it's like, but we didn't catch Simon with drugs. We caught Alexander with drugs.
Yeah.
That's the crime here.
And then I didn't write this part down, but there is the little interaction of him texting him, like, I get that you're mad. Dang, what is it? I get that you're mad. I'm gonna fix this. I'm gonna try to fix this. See you at Lucia, which is that happens earlier. I forgot to mention, but then you get the Simon throwing his phone on his desk.
Yeah,
it's like,
I
they
do
let you sit in it for a little bit before they reconcile.
Yeah, they let you sit in it. I do think it's a maturity from Wilhelm, not from Simon, but from Wilhelm. I mean, okay, they're 16. You don't have to be mature. You're 16. And, like,
I do, and on the one hand, like, as much as Simon was, in ways, putting words in Villa's mouth a little bit, before he had the chance to speak, like, Wilhelm did not comport himself in a way that Simon was going to take well.
Well, no.
And it's not Wilhelm's fault.
Neither of them handled the music scene well. But
no.
I do think it was a, like, demonstration of some level of emotional maturity on Wilhelm's part. I get you're mad.
Yeah.
Not, please don't be mad. But I get you're mad. I'm going to try to fix it.
I mean, like he says, in the moment, although he does scream it, which is not the best way to communicate.
No.
This is a fucked up situation. I'm just trying to talk to you.
Yeah.
And it's like he recognizes how fucked it is. And it's like, but it's anyways. those discussions are more for character episodes.
Yeah, but
I would say
it's like a reward.
Fair. In the reconciliation, we have the important line that I think does actually get disregarded sometimes, like, am I supposed to thank you or what?
Mm-hmm. I put that in my notes as well.
Like, that line always sticks with me, and I'm not entirely sure why, but it's like...
Well, because it's still a very defensive response.
Yeah, I mean, it comes from a place of moral conviction we've identified in Simon.
Yeah.
Of having principles and having to face Wilhelm doing something that, like, by Simon's own moral compass is dubious, to say the least.
Yeah, and I mean, it wasn't great, but also...
No, it's the best out of a bad situation at the end of the day. There's something in that, like, what do you want from me out of this? I think is a valid question when all he's told him is that he made Alexander the scapegoat.
Yeah.
And then we get the response to that, which, fuck me. I just wanted you to know I just didn't want to lose you. You're the only person here that I can actually talk to.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, Simon is incredibly understanding here, but I do want to also give credit that Wilhelm is learning that his priorities can fall outside of his royal duties.
Mm-hmm.
Like Alexander isn't nobility, so it was less of a conflict of interest situation. But not following hierarchy, making the decision himself to protect someone the royal family would have no interest in actually protecting.
Yeah. And the way that those 3 sentences broke down every single wall that Simon walked into that room with. Yeah.
Because we get a sigh after am I supposed to thank you or what? Then we get those 3 sentences. And then we get another even bigger, it's just like exhale, like release. And it's like, well...
Yeah.
And it's like, he can't dispute that because it's all just, at least emotionally, it's all true. Like, it's...
Mm-hmm.
And then intercutting between them hugging and kissing with August uploading the video is actually one of the cruelest editing decisions this show ever makes.
It's rude. That's all I have to say
this
about
deserves an Art of the Frame, but I wanted to note it here.
Yeah, we'll go into it more in Art of the Frame. Right now, I just am mad about it.
Yeah. In a way we're mad that it's good, is the... to clarify.
I'm mad that it happened at all.
Yeah.
And that it makes sense.
Yeah. A thing that I think I didn't fully register until this week, Halishka, Wilhelm is about to address the Mika being here situation when his priorities immediately get shifted back to his crown prince obligations.
Yeah.
Like, he is, again, continuing along this line of, like, thinking about Simon and his needs and emotions. And then he is thrown into a panic. The realization is actually horrifying every time, even when you know it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my stomach drops like clockwork as soon as I hear the buzz of his phone and read, "Is this you?"
Is it really?
Yeah. Like, routinely, like, I think it's because a lot of times I've seen this scene in a reaction of someone who doesn't know what's coming. And so it's like,
that's fair.
Vibing off of them, you're like, I'm waiting for it, I'm waiting for it, I'm waiting for it. And more often, like that clip always, like,
I mean, it has to go in.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And so it's like, yeah. And so it's like, I can, seeing that clip in isolation so many times, I have a feeling for the rhythm of it, exactly when it happens. And I'm like, ugh.
That's fair.
And then a reminder from this week, Larishka. And then Swedish listeners, check me on my work. Check my work if I haven't asked that already. But I translated all the comments. I want to remind us of it.
You know, you really don't have to.
Fine. Yeah, go back to this week, Alershka. Actually, yeah, I don't feel like reading it out.
I mean, you can. That's not. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just meant
That's fair.
emotionally.
No, fair enough.
In the same way where I was like, we don't have to talk about the music scene.
Okay, yeah. But OMG, have you seen this? Shit, the prince is gay. Lol. Gold. The royal house get fucked by the royal dick. That's the one I'm the least sure about. But it feels that feels like a thing. The worst gay. Who's the other guy? Royal porn. But OMFG, I'm dying. Sexiest I've seen. Love. Those really run the gambit, but they're all fucked in some way.
Yeah. Well, because on the one hand, it's either very homophobic. On the other hand, it's sexualizing 16-year-olds.
And on the other hand, it is gatekeeping.
Yeah.
The line "the worst gay" is like.
Yeah.
I read that as gatekeeping.
But it's also just like finding, because like I can't imagine anybody sees this video and is like, they meant for this to be posted.
Right.
So it's also like all of these people, regardless of their reaction, are finding entertainment in it.
Mm-hmm.
That's fucked.
Yeah. And my last point is that this is like just another natural conclusion. Like this season is really good at ending episodes with being like, "Yep, that's the end." Like, but I don't know. Between this, I'm conflicted because it's like between the end of this episode, then Eric's death at the end of episode 3.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what I would qualify as the bigger gut punch.
I think it's.
I mean,
that
Eric's
they
death
happen
is
in such close succession.
Yeah,
is the biggest gut punch than either of their parts.
Yeah, like because like Eric's death is more of the surprise, but the creeping dread of this ending almost makes up for that not being a surprise.
Yeah,
and like a good amount of reactors still have serious questions right up until "is this you?" What exactly August did, because like we don't see the screen very clearly. The level of time he spends, there's implications to it. But like the reactors I was watching this most like in direction there most recently, they were speculating right up until "is this you?" whether or not he might have. No, right. Well, it was right up until the royal family called and it was about his tuition, or about his like room and board. That's when they realized, oh, he didn't send that to the royal family to blackmail them, which was their theory.
Oh, that didn't even cross my mind.
Yeah.
That he would send it just to the royal family, because he's like clearly on like a social platform.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to send it to the royal family, you would just email it to him.
Right. Yeah. Fair enough.
Because that's literally his like aunt.
No. Yeah. And also, I think I knew he was posting it looking back for the first time, just because I could just read into quite how self-destructive he was being.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have anything to gain from sending it directly to the royal family. He has something to gain to sending it to the entire world.
I mean, I think the thought was like leverage to accomplish what he was able to. Wilhelm was able to accomplish by just calling. Like the idea that like they would. Not knowing his tuition got paid, like getting it paid by basically being like, I don't release this.
But
it's less effective.
It's less effective, and that wasn't even like an option that was ever thought about in any way that the viewers could see.
And more than anything else, it is an act of vengeance.
Yeah.
So like that really did for me. Something we've done a few times, and I think with this episode, actually, we can do this now instead of having to wait till next cycle. Think about what those first few moments after the cut might have been like.
Panic attack.
Yeah.
Probably doom scrolling through comments.
Yeah. I'm just like, are Simon and Wilhelm able to interact at all?
Over
before.
text, maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
In person,
Mm-hmm.
doubtful. Just knowing what we know about Wilhelm, I can't imagine he would...
He stays at Lucia.
Well, he stays at Lucia and then would, once it is, like, popular, you know, it's made its rounds and everybody at school knows about it, I can't imagine him, season 1, episode 5, Wilhelm, walking up to Simon after that is known and being like, can we talk?
Yeah. Which then just leads me to, like, just speculate. I mean, spoilers, we don't see how this plays out, so it's like, this is speculation, like, how that went down of Simon finding out. Because it is, we see Wilhelm's reaction, we don't end up seeing Simon's reaction, and I've always I always kind of wondered, how did he find out? Who ultimately was the one to break that news, or did he find it all on his own somehow? Like,
I feel like his friends probably would have been like, hey.
But I think it depends on how quickly it makes the rounds at Hilarska itself, because like if it's makes rounds at Lucia, he could just find out from people whispering.
Yeah. But it doesn't, I mean, again, we get like 2 seconds of seeing Wilhelm's reaction and then it cuts. But it doesn't look like, at least as far as I can remember, everybody's like staring at their phone going, oh, fuck.
No, yeah. Wilhelm
gets
rare
sent
in actually, rare. Wilhelm seems to be rare in actually being like aware of it. He's also, I think we don't really talk about much is that they like invented a forum site. Yeah. For it to go on, which I mean, good on you not getting sued.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if they had like been like Instagram.com.
Right. I mean, I feel like the closest comparison to K-Chan would probably be 4chan, is the thing. But it's like without saying that this kind of thing could happen on 4chan, you'd just be like, well, which it definitely could, but without needing to say it. I don't know. I think it just also just like choosing that is like at least something that gives the vibes of like the trolliest of websites. Mm-hmm. Because that's something I've always considered, which, well, we can get into at a later date. But like the fact that like August knows that site enough to know that it would be an effective place to put it.
I mean, but he's a piece of shit, so
right, exactly. But like, I think that like that says a lot without saying anything. Yeah, I like directly.
That's fair.
In any event, that's the end of my notes.
It's the end of mine as well.
Thank you for listening. Mm-hmm. If you'd like to keep up to date with when we release new episodes and other pod-related announcements, you can check out our Instagram or our threads at People That Don't Talk About. Our next episode will be The Art of the Frame for Season 1, Episode 5. So stay tuned. And with that, all I have to say is...
Let's start a revolution, baby.